You got a coaching program where you're teaching people how to do them. Now, we're not talking about fix and flip and distress. We're not talking about appearance-based distress. We're talking about underlying title issue distress.
Yeah, this isn't physical distress. This is ownership. This is paperwork. This is distress from a financial situation.
How do you go about first finding that distressed title problem? Because I can look at a home and be like, oh, a house is in distress, but,
Yeah.
you know.
But does it have ownership problems?
Yeah.
Does it have judgments and liens? I've been through every rendition of county records, land records, all kinds of list stacking. I've done it all. And what I found over time is the best way to do it is look for delinquent tax properties. A large part of them don't have a mortgage. Otherwise, the lender would be paying it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of equity. We start with the delinquent tax list up there.
Where do you find that?
Go to your county for a couple $100. They'll send you a CD or an email file. You might have to have someone help you modify the file to be a useful format. And then you have this massive Excel sheet of lots of property, assessed value, delinquent tax value, last year paid tax roll value, address, owner name.
Yep. So then from there, you got the list, you got all the names, you got the addresses, you got the asset value, how much they owe on their taxes, how much they're behind.
Yeah.
You go sort that list.
So I want to see somebody at least 2 or 3 years behind, because just like a college kid who can't pay their credit card, after a couple months, you keep lying to yourself, telling you're going to get caught up. Once you get 6 months behind, you know you're not getting caught up and you start to get real with it. Guess it's going to hurt my credit. Guess I'm going to cancel this account. Same with property taxes. And it's about a 2.8% property tax rate. So on a $100,000 property, you can run a formula in Excel that says, I want to see $10,000 in delinquent taxes. That's about 3 years of taxes.
Gotcha.
I want them to be about that range. That leaves a lot of equity. There's room for me to pay fair money to the person, have a lot of equity, and then pay off the taxes. What I usually recommend to people is we try to get that median price point of real estate in that county. And then, we'll cut the very low stuff. Like if the property's worth less than $100,000, I would rather not mess with it, because it's the same effort to do $100,000 as a $900,000 deal.
So now you got the list. Got the list all figured out, the target properties you want to target. About 50% of them are people that have problems. Now what do you do?
I'll filter that by geographic location, sometimes by zip code, and really just kind of narrow down a smaller subset, because we don't use big data like a lot of people do with, 10,000 leads and a bunch of cold callers and burn through it. That's not how we do it. These require a little bit more research. So once you narrow down your list down to a couple thousand, filter by a couple of zip codes you're familiar with, so it requires less research to value it. At that point, you just start at the top.
Okay, you got the list. What are you looking for exactly when you're behind? Like, where do you start? Like, what's the first thing you start doing? You know they're behind on taxes.
Yeah.
But like, how do you identify problems past taxes?
I don't go further at that point. And the reason is I don't want to get trapped in this never-ending cycle of research. You could spend half your day researching that file and everything about it. And then you call that person and they say, F you, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
You burned all your time. So we want to do just enough research when we're looking at distressed property files to ascertain there is a problem. Don't know what it is, but there is one. It's delinquent on taxes, and let's get an owner on the phone.
Okay.
Once you do that and you get some interest with those owners, then we decide to dig deeper in the research. But only if we get them on the phone, they're interested in selling, and we float very low purchase prices right off the bat in those early conversations. Then we'll start digging on the research.
Okay, so you're doing the little bit of research to find the obituaries, to find the heirs of that property, if there are any, which it typically is it's an heirship issue. So you got to find those people. Then you're skip tracing those phone numbers and calling those people pertain to this one deal.
That's right.
And do you do that as you're researching, or do you okay, we got those obituaries, throw that in, attach that one deal, let's move on to the next ones, or you just stop right there and start calling?
No, we'll do it more procedurally. And the reason is it's really bad for a person to research call. It's not a good workflow, and you're very inefficient because you're changing gears a lot. So we'll burn through and research 100 files and get all 100 files filled out with the data, the contact information, the basics. Then tomorrow is phone call day. Gotcha. And we start working through that calling, because you've cold called just like all the rest of us. Man, you got to get in the mood. You got to get feeling it. Like you got to have that coffee. You got to get a little bit of sun in the morning. Like you got to have your food. You got to be ready. And when you're in the zone, you don't want to stop and do a bunch of research. When we're in the zone, call. My conversation is more discovery oriented and much more, I'm not aggressive. I don't do the typical, the Andy Elliott sales, this offer expires today. And, if you don't work with me, you're going to lose it. All these things. We don't do any of that.
Yeah.
I just start out my phone call saying, hey, my name is Logan. I've got a real estate office here in San Antonio, and I do projects that have a lot of problems, title problems and stuff. This one popped up on one of my lists, and, it looks like it might have some stuff like that. I would be interested in taking a look at this with you because these are the kind of properties, these are the projects I do. Would you want to chat about that? I'm non-threatening.
You get off the phone. You start looking into your research. What's the first thing you go to? What's, with the information?
Right to the land records in Google. Okay. I want to type in Evan Big Price. I want to type that in, and I want to see if there are judgments and liens, other properties, other mortgages against your name, any affidavits that have information about your family. Well, I'll actually start with Grandpa.
Yeah.
And then I'll do him, I'll do your dad and mom, then I'll do you. We'll also put that same information into Google and see what comes up there.
Gotcha.
But it helps us build out. So what we're ultimately looking for is we're going to build a family tree. Or maybe it's just one person. There's no family tree, it's single owner. But I want to look at a title report and see if there are breaks in the title chain, if we have bad instruments of title, like a bogus deed or a messed up affidavit of heirship or something, or unreleased mortgage from a long time ago. We want to find all that. And we kind of lay it out and say, okay, there are 5 owners. You owe $10,000 in taxes. The property's worth $100,000. But this person has a judgment against him for not paying his child support for $30,000. That's more than his share's even worth.
Yeah.
So I start to build those things out when I have conversations with each person. I let them know, of the $100,000 property, you've got a fifth that's $20,000, but you have all these judgments and liens that are worth $50,000.
Yep.
You really don't have any equity, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple $1,000. Now I'm going to be the one that has to try to fiddle with these liens and hope I can get it fixed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Plus, I have legal fees. I don't even know what they look like yet. But I can give you a couple $1,000 for your share.
How do you determine that? So you got a $300,000 house out in Medina Lake.
Mm-hmm.
You got $50,000 in judgments on this one guy that owns a fifth.
Mm-hmm. Those judgments only attach to his share, not the total property.
Yeah, exactly. So they're only attached to his share. And then you're still researching everybody else. I mean, I understand why you're waiting now to call that guy back to make him that offer. But you're doing all this research, at the end of the day, you don't know what the legal fees, you don't know if you're going to get this done. I mean,
and that's exactly what I tell people, why I can't pay huge amounts of money. I explain to them, look, I got to fix this Cadillac up, all the problems. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you want to get Cadillac parts, there's a catalog and a price. But when I'm fixing problems like this, there's no line item for legal fees because it could take hours or weeks or months. And there's problems I don't even know exist. Like there are other things that are going to come up that we don't even know exist yet, which is why I can't offer a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm not buying your share in this property. I'm buying your seat at the table. And y'all's Thanksgiving table is a mess. Everybody's fighting, throwing food at each other and yelling. So I'm really just taking your seat here. And I hope I'm going to make some money, but truthfully, there are times where I don't. It doesn't work out for me.
Yeah. We researched it. We know the problems. Calling the guy back, you're making him an offer, couple $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
You buy that one guy's share. Now you got to repeat this step
multiple times.
Now, what happens when, say, the first guy you talked to didn't have anything attached to that share? It was just straight up equity.
Mm-hmm.
You're still making him a low offer just to.
And I'm telling him, I got Gustavo, your crazy cousin or brother, who I still have not been able to get a hold of. I still don't even know what the context is going to be like. I just can't pay you huge amounts of money for 2 reasons. One, I don't know what's coming up. I could have some real crazy wild card stuff happening. I got to pay the taxes for the next 3, 4, 5 years till I fix this. Got to have budget for that. Oh, and I got to make a little money. I got to do this and keep the lights on. And while you might think $30,000 profit or $40,000 is a lot of profit, for me to deal with this for several years and only make $30,000, I can't even keep my lights on. Yeah. So I got to make a little more than that for a 4-year project. Oh, okay.
So you got it all done. You got all the purchases. You got all the shares bought. Mm-hmm. You still have typically things to fix.
Yeah.
Judgments and stuff. What's your time frame look like on fixing everything?
Along this timeline, I'm kind of ascertaining what all is out there and what my likelihood. After doing this a long time, okay, I'm going to get this negotiated for this many cents on the dollar, or I can get this one taken off my title commitment because it's no longer collectible, or, it was indexed poorly, whatever. I kind of start to build that up along the way. But a typical transaction right now takes about 120 to 150 days. And when I first started this, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was learning. My cash conversion cycle was between 12 and 15 months. So an average deal would take me over a year to clean up. As we got some experience, I started getting better at the process, finding more resources to make it happen faster. But I also started to pick more wisely. So if a deal is something that is not super high price and it's got 40 owners and I can tell it's going to be a hassle, I'll just kind of look at that and say, you know what? No, I want properties that have big enough problems where I can negotiate a good discount, but not such big a problem that it's going to be my new best friend for the next 10 years. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I kind of narrow in the ones that have good spread, probably reasonable enough to fix. And we choose better now.
This is so complicated. There's so many things that are complex in this. I mean, like, I understand from your point of view, it's like, well, it's pretty simple because you have the experience to back it up. You've seen it 100 times.
50% of these are only multiple owners that you just have to negotiate separately. So half these deals are that.
Yeah.
Maybe only a third of them are very complicated title issues that you have to deal with solving. So if you start out wanting to do this, don't try to take on all of them. Just sort through the ones that only have ownership problems.
Mm-hmm.
And you can run a title report for $200 from Pro Title USA. You send in, have them run the report, and if it's clean except multiple owners, all you're doing is negotiating with owners. Now that's half.
Yeah.
I recommend people start with those, start making your money, start getting comfortable with the process. As you work through that, then you can start picking up other ones and testing them as you're improving.